course you're recording already. This is the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 23. On today's show, we have Elizabeth Vrklan with us discussing a topic she calls the dangers of film. Also, we're breaking down everything that came out D23 this past weekend, from live action to animation and much more. So sit back and relax because the Vince Salerno Podcast starts right now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 23 on this Friday, July 21st, 2017. I'm your host, Vince Salerno, and now I am 4 for 4, another special guest on the show today. Good friend of mine I've known for quite some time. Pretty great filmmaker and gaffer and everything else. It's Elizabeth Vrklan.
Hello.
So why don't you words. Why don't you tell the people about yourself? What do you do?
So I am a student studying specifically cinematography. As Vince mentioned, I do a lot of lighting and coloring, so just basically the entire visual world of cinema. So that's what I focus on. I love stories that are visually interesting and
Chris Nolan.
Yeah, Chris Nolan. Chivo. Just shout out to Chivo for a minute. Yeah, and Reed Morano. Nice. Everything Reed Morano does.
He's pretty great. Yeah.
And indie cinema.
Yeah, cool. Well, glad you could be here with us. And I didn't mess up your name this time. Remember last time we did something?
Yeah.
And I called you Anna Vrklan because we were doing something for the movie Anna, and
yeah.
So
yeah,
good.
You know.
Good thing I didn't mess it up. We're on a roll.
Yeah.
All right.
You remember my name. That's great.
I remembered your name. I mean, it's
yeah.
been
3 years.
We've known each other for about 3 years. I think I'd remember your name.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right. Well, this past weekend, D23 happened, so that's basically all we're talking about this week. So let's start off with the first of the top 5. Number 1, Disney showed off a bunch of new footage for Ralph Breaks the Internet, WreckIt Ralph 2. Still not a fan of that title. The footage showed Ralph and Vanellope, voiced by John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman, going into the world of the internet and meeting a character voiced by Taraji P. Henson named Yes, with multiple S's. There was a scene where we see all the Disney princesses in CGI animated form all together in one scene. And then I guess C-3PO shows up, and there are Star Wars characters and Marvel characters, which makes sense because it's the internet. So yeah, let's talk about it. Obviously, this footage didn't get released, but it's still pretty exciting. I mean, it almost undermines the fact that it's WreckIt Ralph 2 when you just want to jump to the fact that, holy crap, they got all the Disney princesses in one scene. And they got all the original voice actresses, too.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the interesting things is, as you were describing it, I did look it up and try to figure out some stuff about it. Mm-hmm. But I think you describing what characters are going to be in there, it kind of sounds like a movie version of Disney Infinity.
It kind of does.
Because it has all the same characters as Disney Infinity, so it's just kind of you're not making your own choices.
Yeah, you just need to get the Pixar people in there, which I hope they do. That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, that would be really cool, a Disney Infinity film.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's funny you say that because I was actually a big fan of that game, and I played it a lot. And when it got canceled, I was devastated.
Just a little.
Oh, good, you remember.
Yeah, I remember your social media feed from that time.
Yep, it was a very sad time. Very sad time indeed.
Yeah, see, I never really got into it just because it was expensive.
It is expensive, but luckily they've gone. Surprisingly, they're all still around, so they're trying to get rid of them still. So they're all at $1.99 per figure or per game, which is yes, I'll buy that.
Yeah,
I will gladly buy that. But yeah, I guess this sort of shows off the power Disney has with owning the greatest princess stories ever, and owning the rights to Star Wars, and owning the rights to Marvel, and also creating something as original and fun as Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this definitely... I think that this film, in the sense of that the characters that they're able to bring into it really shows what Disney has as a brand.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't...
They own a lot. No, well, just from kind of like a business industry standpoint, Disney owns everything.
They do.
And so, this kind of is almost... I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say it's like an actual visual establishment of like, this is what we own.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that's not their intention, but at the same time, it really does kind of say, like, this is what we have.
I mean, to add to that theory, there was a moment in that footage that was released where they shout out the website, Oh My Disney, which I don't know if you follow that, but yeah, it's like their website where they do all the emoji things and social media stuff. Really fun.
Like the BuzzFeed of Disney.
BuzzFeed of Disney, yeah. So they shout that out. So it's like, literally, it's exactly what you said, a physical, tangible representation of what Disney has become.
And I think the irony is we're actually, so if you look at the top 5 page that we're looking at right now, the image that they have of WreckIt Ralph has what are actually, you can legally put this in here because they're changed, but they have logos that are very similar to Amazon and Google, which are 2 current powerhouses, especially...
BuzzFeed.
Oh, BuzzFeed's on there too?
Right there.
Yeah, BuzzFeed's on there. So they have a couple of these industries that they're actually up against, which I think is kind of interesting. Like, I mean, again, might not be their intention, but I just think it's kind of interesting to sort of see. We've also seen Amazon dive into making films now with, like, Manchester by the Sea, The Big Sick. Like,
yeah.
I had a discussion with someone about that like, you're seeing Amazon Studios, and, like, you remember when that was something you just... bought stuff from.
I wonder if that's going to be teased.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, I guess that's exciting because not only did they get the princesses, but they also got the voices, like Kristen Bell, who played Anna in Frozen, Jodie Benson, who played Ariel, Ali Cravalho, I hope I'm saying that right, who played Moana. Freaking love Moana, so it's kind of bad that I don't know how to say that name. Hopefully I said it right. I think I did. And then Paige O'Hare as Belle from Beauty and the Beast, which is big for me because I love Belle and Beauty and the Beast. And then I guess in that scene, C-3PO shows up. Let's stop talking about the characters. Let's stop talking about the actual movie. I mean, there isn't really a lot to go off of the movie. We don't know really the plot. All they know... Oh, well, okay, no, we do know something about the plot. I'm sorry. I guess Vanellope's game, the Sugar Rush one, it breaks... and they have to go into the internet to find a piece or something to fix the game, which is interesting. It's a little strange since considering the first Wreck-It Ralph had a very character-centric plot about a guy a bad guy proving he could be a good guy. This is very much plot-driven in the sense that we need to save the game. So I wonder what sort of emotional conflicts Ralph and Vanellope are going to have, if any. I mean, I imagine things are still sort of hunky-dory after the first movie ended. Because I just recently watched it like a week ago, not even thinking about D23. And this movie's super fantastic, and I've been super hyped about the sequel. I actually got to go to Disney Animation Studios, and I saw... I didn't get to actually go into the hall where they're making things, but I peeked into the hallway of where the rooms are where they're editing the movie, and there was this really cool concept art of like things I can't describe, but no, just what I saw got me really excited for Wreck-It Ralph 2. I don't know if you've seen this, right?
So I have seen some stuff. I saw part of what they were talking about with the panel, that it's coming off of the big win with Zootopia. I personally think, just kind of from what I'm hearing about the plot, it is going to be interesting to see, sort of like from a story structural standpoint, going from what's a man versus man sort of plot. Like, I think that was something that was so appealing to people with Wreck-It Ralph, is this idea of like, I'm a bad guy, but I'm not really a bad guy.
Yeah.
Kind of like a good person put in a bad situation sort of thing. Right. So I think that's where a lot of the heart came from with the first Wreck-It Ralph, and it was very much resonated with people. So I think it will be interesting to see what happens when this becomes a much more sort of like man versus an exterior obstacle sort of thing.
Yeah.
And just kind of see how they handle the characters with that. And, you know, whether or not this will be... I mean, it's going to be a success. Like, I won't deny that.
No
because
doubt.
it's WreckIt Ralph and it's Disney. Like, I mean, Disney could make an animated film about a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and people would pay for it. Like,
yeah, definitely.
They have their brand very established at this point. So it definitely will be successful. I just think it will be interesting to see if it will have the same sort of like fan base and emotional impact that the first one did. Or if it will just kind of be like a sweet follow-up that people enjoy.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. Despite my visit, I did not hear a ton about WreckIt Ralph because I got my visit from the editor of Moana, not WreckIt Ralph. So
nice.
Yeah. All right, number 2. Pixar also was at D23, and they showed off a lot of really cool things. The main thing of which was for The Incredibles 2, which, if you're not excited for The Incredibles 2, then what's wrong with you? I'm just kidding. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. It's perfectly fine. But no, we've been waiting almost 13, 14 years for an Incredibles 2. It's probably the only Pixar movie besides Toy Story that deserves a sequel. And now we're finally getting word about what the movie will be about. I guess it'll focus a little more on Elastigirl instead of Mr. Incredible. Although he'll still be a main character, there's just shifting the focus, I guess. But there was a really funny scene that they showed at D23 where Jack as a baby is fighting a raccoon because he sees a commercial of, or he sees like a movie on TV about this bank robber and this cop fighting, and he thinks the raccoon is the bank robber. So obviously using his powers unknown to the family, he fights the raccoon, and then Mr. Incredible finally comes out and stops the raccoon, and he sees that Jack has powers, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, he's got powers!" Because they never figured that out in the first movie, so it'd be cool to see how they play with that. I mean, otherwise, not a lot was known about the plot. Well, except that, only a minute will have passed between the first and the second one, which was kind of cool. Because people theorized, like, oh, we're going to see actually 13 years later, and Jack and Dash and Violet will be grown up, and Elastigirl, Mr. Incredible will be a lot older. But no, it's only going to take place a minute after the first movie, which means we'll see that fight that they teased at the end of the first movie, and then the story will kind of continue. I mean, who knows, maybe it will, well, I guess no, it won't cut later because we already see Jack as a baby, but maybe it'll be a year later or something after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm personally very excited to see it focus on Elastigirl. I love that character.
Yeah, no,
like,
she's pretty great.
It's like, she's like the definition of badass. Like, you know, so I think that's really cool to see that, especially because just kind of in the sense of like how Pixar handles their female characters. They're all kind of like very unique and very real. Mm-hmm. Like nothing, I don't think I've ever seen a Pixar character that I'm like, like doesn't feel real.
Doesn't feel real. Yeah, I think what makes this particular story so cool is that they're a family and she's a mom.
Yeah, exactly.
And seeing a mom be a kick-ass superhero is, yeah, it's an interesting take and one I'm excited to see more of in The Incredibles 2. Like I said, we didn't see much else about the story. They're keeping a lot of things under wraps. We know that Edna Mode, who was voiced by the director Brad Bird, will be back. It'll be interesting to see what Brad Bird does with this because he didn't have a great response to Tomorrowland, which I just finally saw like a week ago. And I know, because I've been wanting to see it for a while and just finally never got around to it.
I saw it, I think, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago.
What'd you think of it?
I thought it was interesting. I can't really think of anything that like particularly stood out. Like, I mean, I personally thought it was cool to like see Tomorrowland as like a world, just because like for me, I grew up in Florida, which meant that like I went to Disney.
Oh yeah.
As a kid.
Florida's great.
Like a good amount. I mean, Florida's great except for, like, the humidity
well,
and
I'm
the
sorry,
bugs and, like...
Disney World
Disney World
in Florida
is great. Yeah, I mean, I could go on about Florida, but, like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a reason I moved to California.
Right.
But anyways, so, like, seeing that in, like, an actual, like, Tomorrowland world,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think the visual representation of that was probably my favorite part.
Yeah, that was
But
really cool.
I, to be honest, I don't remember the plot. Like, I
Yeah,
remember images, but I don't remember the plot of it.
It unfortunately is kind of a forgetful movie, and
Yeah.
me being a big science fiction fan, I definitely got a lot of visual inspiration for ideas I have, but
Mhm.
otherwise I thought the plot was a little too political for what I was expecting.
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily have a problem with the message, more or less. I did
Yeah.
I just was expecting to be a little more entertained with the spectacle and the action and the
Mhm.
fun, and it felt a little bit more like a political statement disguised as a Disney film.
Yeah, I think the hard thing is that, like, I mean, at least something that I guess I should, like, preface is I'm not a fan of films that have messages. Like, I don't mind if you, like, get something across during your story, but if your point of a film is to, like, tell a message or, like, an agenda, that really personally bothers me.
Yeah,
So
me too.
if it's just gonna be visual spectacle with, like, a message.
Yeah, because I mean, I want to be entertained. I kind of want to just escape the political world and agendas and whatever. I just want to be entertained and watch movies. So I agree.
Yeah.
I don't need political hodgepodge
Yeah,
meshed
and
in my face.
It's not even just stepping away and being entertained. It's like you can't have a message and have an emotional connection with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, like, the point of storytelling is to connect with other humans and to show, like, here's my life through your, like, here's my life and you can see it through your own eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
good.
you know, you're not sharing your life if you're sharing a message.
Yeah.
Like, a life isn't a message.
You're enforcing your life. You're not really sharing it. But anyways, we're getting off topic.
Sorry.
But, no.
For later.
I mean, yeah, Brad Bird's not a terrible director in any sense of the word. Like, everything he does is great. I didn't hate Tomorrowland, but I definitely was a little disappointed. I think having him come back to something he's a little more familiar with, something we already know that he can do really well, I think will be really cool. I don't see there being any potential for political correctness or anything like that in Incredibles 2, but yeah, there's other stuff that Pixar released, though. They announced that Toy Story 4, which was actually announced 2 years ago, I don't know what D23 that was, but it was 2 years ago they announced it, and they said that John Lasseter has stepped down as director of Toy Story 4, and a new director will be taking his place. I don't remember his name, but he is one of the younger interns that started out a long time ago at Pixar and has worked his way up the chain, working on other films, co-directing, being in story rooms, and now he's got a chance to direct a movie of his own, which is Toy Story 4. And we still don't know anything about Toy Story 4 except that it's about Woody and Buzz trying to find Bo Peep, which, you know, some people are like, don't make Toy Story 4, don't do it. Me being a big Toy Story fan, like, this is the series that got me into filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
If you say Toy Story and the number 4, I'll go see your movie.
Well, if you say Toy Story, you'll be there.
I'll be there. You don't even have to put a number in there. Just say Toy Story, and I'll be there.
Jeez, I should have just had you do my homework the other week.
If it involves Toy Story, I'll do it.
Yeah, we recently, as class here, Fundamentals of Story Development, we read Toy Story 3 to, like, understand about story development and certain aspects of it. So basically, we kind of read it and then discussed what we took away from that.
Nice.
So that's about as much Toy Story as I've gotten recently.
Yeah. Well, here's more for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, as I said, the plot is still the same as before. Woody and Buzz try to find Bo Peep, and I guess John Lasseter is really passionate about this story because they didn't want to make Toy Story 4, but then they had this idea and they couldn't get it out of their heads, and they're like, we got to make this movie. And they're making it very clear that it is like several years after the third movie. They're not trying to create a sequel to that specific storyline. It's like that. It's almost like, you know, the new Star Wars films. It's like yes, the original trilogy chapter closed, and now we're opening a new story. It's kind of what's happening with Toy Story 4, I think, is that that trilogy, started an arc and ended an arc, and now we're getting something new that could lead to more, and maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I'd assume since it's several years down the road, Andy's not going to be involved, or the only thing I could foresee is if, like, I don't know, some active Pixar, like, I don't know, maybe Andy's, like, a parent or something.
Yeah, well, I mean,
like,
I know they're not going to focus on the kids at all. It's like they said it's not about
early.
it's the toys, and their world. It's not about owners and being owned and being put in the attic and friendship or whatever. I mean, it's a friendship between the toys.
Yeah,
it's
but they're not going to play...
Nothing to do with Bonnie or Andy, per se. Andy's off the call, so...
Yeah, just to kind of preface, so people kind of understand where my Toy Story experience comes from, I saw Toy Story 3 once when I was babysitting a kid. That was my first experience with Toy Story. I saw Toy Story once before I came to college because I knew I was going to get a ton of crap going to film school and not having seen...
Specifically from me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew Vinny and I knew I was going to... Yeah. Okay. Anyways.
Good thing you didn't tell me that.
Yeah. So I've never seen Toy Story 2. And, yeah.
Well, so that's okay. I mean...
That's kind of my like, knowledge of this, so...
Toy Story 2.
Take his word as gospel, not mine.
You should definitely see Toy Story 2. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely a good one.
Yeah.
And the last thing Pixar revealed was that they're making a suburban fantasy movie.
That's the one with, like, the unicorns?
The unicorns and the fairies, but it's all in, like, a suburbs-type town, which is really cool and interesting. But I guess it's about these two brothers who their dad dies when they're very young. And, like,
Disney and parents dying.
Yeah,
you know.
Typical. Now Pixar's doing it. Well, I guess they've still been doing it for a while. But so the last bit of magic in the world is left in this suburban fantasy world. So they have to travel to that world so they can, like, spend one last day with their dad or something. So it's a fairly heartfelt story.
That's really sweet.
Pulls on the heartstrings, but that sounds like they're still working on original ideas, which is great. Obviously, Coco's coming out, which they did a thing on, and nothing has wowed me yet for Coco, but I'm still looking forward to it because
I wouldn't say so. First of all, kind of like looking at Coco. Not gonna lie, I kind of look at it and I'm like, so it's like Pixar and Book of Life.
Yeah, that's what everyone's saying.
So I haven't actually seen the Book of Life, and I've seen the Coco trailer. It looks really pretty. That's like I said before, cinematography student. It looks really pretty.
Yeah.
It looks really pretty, and like the candles, and like there's like the thing in the trailer where like he plays the guitar and then it like turns around and there's like lights and stuff, and I'm just like.
Yeah, no,
my eyeballs want to like die.
it's Pixar at their doing what they do best, making original emotional stories, but having that visual spectacle as well.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to Coco. I'm just not like, oh my gosh, Coco is coming out. It's going to be the best movie of 2017, and who knows, maybe it will. I don't know, but I don't know. Nothing has wowed me yet, but
I don't know. I mean, there's some stuff that's come out this year. That like.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Baby Driver though.
Baby Driver, Dunkirk's probably gonna be incredible. It's already getting Oscar buzz.
Atomic Blonde.
Atomic Blonde. Well, we'll see. I'm not really a fan of that.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm excited to see that.
I'm glad you found some value in it.
I appreciate good action, and I feel like that's
it's
like what I've seen looks like good action.
I will say the action scenes look very well choreographed and fun. Everything else around it, I'm just like, no.
Yeah, see, the thing is, the only reason I'm excited for it is I've seen like 2 action scenes from it and nothing else. So that might be why I'm excited for it.
If you dig a little deeper, you might be a little disappointed.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't want to make you not excited anymore.
But Baby Driver though.
Baby Driver.
We'll
talk about that some other time because we gotta keep going.
Yeah,
but yeah, Pixar's panel was pretty great, and although they didn't reveal a lot, they still teased us with a lot of great things to look forward to. So keep looking forward for Pixar stuff. All right, number 3. Also at D23, they released the first trailer and poster for A Wrinkle in Time, which is the big budget directorial debut of Ava DuVernay. That being her directorial debut as a big budget film director, not as a director on her own, because she's obviously directed other things
clearly.
before. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The film stars a newcomer named Storm Reed or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Stars Oprah Winfrey, Chris Pine, Mindy Kaling, Reese Witherspoon, Zach Galifianakis. I can't remember who else. But yeah, I guess it's based on the classic storybook that our teachers all made us read in high school. Not mine.
Yeah, full disclosure, never read the book.
Never read the book. But, you know, part of me was really wowed by this. Part of me was a little like...
It's really pretty.
It is really pretty.
It's really pretty.
I felt like the trailer was a little too meaty to be a teaser. Like, I think they tried to say a little too much in this. And I like, when I see the first look of a movie, I like to be properly teased. Almost kind of like Star Wars. I love how they put their their teasers together. Because they really do a good job at saying a lot without showing a lot. And this was trying to say a lot by showing a lot, which I'm not a huge fan of. But that's just going into the makings of the trailer. And the footage itself and the story look fun. I mean, it looks like a fun movie.
The thing with I think that kind of applies to sort of like teasers and trailers. Like, it's changed so much, kind of like the dynamic of like how we anticipate a film. Like, even the fact that we're sitting here discussing like, here's the top 5 of like movies that are coming out in the next 20 years. Like, this was not a thing 5 years ago. Like, you know, so I think that's definitely interesting. But just, I mean, first of all, Ava DuVernay. Just like, let's just have a minute for like her as a director. Yeah. She's great.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for her.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see that. I will pay to see anything she directs. Mm-hmm. She's a boss, like, you know. Yeah. Definitely excited to see. I think she does a really great job collaborating with other really great film people. Mm-hmm. So, like, in a sense of like who she tends to choose as her cinematographer and her editors and stuff, I think that overall it will be a very well done film.
Definitely. So
I'm excited to see in that sense, and I mean, I'm a fan of her directing style, so I'm excited to see that. Like,
yeah, I'll confess I've never seen an Ava DuVernay movie. Guilty as charged, but not to say that I haven't wanted to.
Do you at least follow her on Twitter?
More or less. I see what she posts on Twitter. I don't necessarily follow her. No, but I've been a fan because I think Hollywood needs to start getting more good female directors, and they've been already doing a pretty good job with getting Patty Jenkins to direct Wonder Woman, who has proven herself to be a great director even before Wonder Woman. So that's why I had a lot of confidence in that movie.
Definitely, I think the female voice is like making a stand in Hollywood. Like, I mean, not to get too much into like feminist Hollywood or anything, but like, I think it's really cool to see a lot of female voices in cinema, because if we want to have like an honest balance of seeing the world as it is, there needs to be a female voice in cinema.
Right.
And so it's really great to see that. But I'm not saying that like all women, like it should be all women or it should be all men. Like, I think that it, like a good combination. So I think like Selma is really cool because you see, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible person now. I forgot his name. The DP. Oh. He did Arrival. It starts with a B. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna look it up right now.
Wasn't it Roger Deakins?
No, it was not Roger Deakins. Shush. Okay. Anyways, the combination of his visual style and her directing style, I think, is really great, because you have this kind of merging of sort of like Bradford Young.
Oh, he's
shout out to Bradford Young.
He's shooting Han Solo.
What?
He's shooting Han Solo. The Han Solo
that's
movie.
Awesome. Okay, just shout out to Bradford Young. You are a boss. Your cinematography is gorgeous. You'll probably never hear this, but thank you.
Bradford Young, check out the Vince Salerno Podcast.
Thank you. I was at the same event that you were at. That was kind of cool. But anyways,
It's
so
okay. We shout out celebrities all the time on here. We actually shouted out Naomi Scott last week.
Yeah.
So who knows if they'll ever hear it? But
yeah, no, but
it's a thought that counts.
the point being, I think that kind of like the combination of his visual style with her directing style is very cool because you have this sort of like merging of the two voices of the world. Like, you know,
yeah,
women see things differently than guys do. Like, whether or not, I don't know. Like, I mean, we all see things differently, but I think it's really great to have this sort of like merging of the voices. Who's DPing Wrinkle in Time? Okay, I'm sorry.
But no, I agree with that because I think you had to get a woman to direct something like Wonder Woman because it's a woman and it's probably one of the greatest female characters ever made. I think if you make a man direct that movie, you definitely lose an understanding of how females work. So I think that worked to their benefit. I think it's gonna work hopefully the same for Wrinkle in Time. And not to say that men can't direct women. But there's definitely like you said, you perfectly there should be a good balance of women and men directing and making films, and there just hasn't been. So to see people like Patty Jenkins and Ava DuVernay make their mark in film with these big budget films is incredible.
Well, one note about Wonder Woman. I was discussing this with another student here, but I think something interesting they said was that the stunt coordinator was a man. And that sounds really kind of strange that would be an issue, but in the sense of that you are choreographing a woman. So understanding like the physicality of that from a woman's standpoint of like how you would move in a fight.
Yeah.
I think it's something interesting is that
it's important.
It's important to kind of like understand and to collaborate and to sort of see like where everybody stands with things. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by cinematographers on IMDb.
Tobias A. Schleicher?
You know what? You say that, and then I don't have to look like the person who mispronounced it.
Okay. It looks like Schleicher. Tobias A. Schleicher is the DP of Wrinkle in Time, who also did Beauty and the Beast, Dreamgirls,
Lone Survivor, and Friday Night Lights.
Cool.
Nice.
So we know it's going to be shot well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still on Wrinkle in Time.
Even though we've like sidetracked.
Yeah, I mean, I guess being people who have never read the book, we can't speak much on the plot. But it's a fun science fiction Disney movie, which I'm a fan of because after Tomorrowland, they kind of dropped the ball on science fiction live action properties, which I was pissed at because that means no Tron 3.
I'm sorry. Can I point out that we're also talking about Star Wars? Today, they have not dropped the ball on science fiction live-action properties.
That is a property that's already been established, though. Their original Disney science fiction properties is more so what I'm talking about. But yes, you're right. They own the biggest sci-fi property in the world right now. So, but yeah, looks really great. Costume design, cinematography, special effects, everything. Directing. Looks great. Directing. And she's bringing in a newcomer, Storm Reed. I'm always a fan of directors casting newcomers to play roles. So, hats off to Ava DuVernay and Disney for doing this. And I guess they brought the house down with this panel. So let's check out A Wrinkle in Time when it comes out. Not yet. It hasn't come out yet.
Oh, okay. I thought we were gonna watch.
Let's watch the movie right now, live.
I thought you were gonna be like one of those people who has a podcast and then shows a video that nobody can see.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Number 4. I know what number 4 is. Number 4.
Isn't it number 5?
No, I believe it's number 4.
Oh.
Yeah, number 4.
Never mind.
My phone's broken, so I don't have the show notes in front of me. So Elizabeth is helping me out because I sent those to her. Thanks. Number 4, we're talking about Avengers Infinity War. Probably the biggest thing to come out of D23 is 1, the cast assembling on stage. 2, they showed some almost earth-shattering footage, and 3, they revealed Thanos' children who are going to play a big role in the film. So first off, the cast of Infinity War, not all of them, most of them were there. Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Holland, Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, Dave Bautista, Karen Gillan, Palm Clementif, Don Cheadle, Anthony Mackie, Chadwick Boseman, Oh, who else? I don't want to forget anybody.
I'm really bad with actors' names.
That's
so,
okay.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin was there, also who plays Thanos. Kevin Feige was there as well. Then they showed footage, which I guess was insane, like Thanos throwing moons at the Avengers, Thor crashing on. Mark Ruffalo and Chris Hemsworth are there as well. Thor crashing on the window of the Guardians of the Galaxy spaceship, and Thor meets the Guardians in that scene. Star-Lord teams up with Doctor Strange. Thor gets his head crushed by Thanos. Iron Man's fighting Thanos and gets the crap beat out of him. Spider-Man is in his costume, and all sorts of great, crazy things happen in that footage that I'm just geeking out about. And then they also revealed these giant statues of the children of Thanos, who are comic book characters that have been speculated to be in the movie for a long time. We've seen set photos of these people in motion capture suits. It's been speculated that those are the children of Thanos. I don't have the names in front of me because they're...
Do you want me to pull them?
Sure. I know one of them is named like Ebony Maw and something Midnight, and yeah, crazy stuff. Anyways, no, this is
exciting. I
exciting.
thought you were looking for actors' names. Sorry, never mind.
Characters' names, yeah. No, this is exciting because, as I said with Shelby Turner 2 weeks ago, Infinity War is the culmination of the MCU, and the promise of Infinity War is to give us as many crossover moments as possible. So that includes the Guardians and the Avengers and specific Avenger relationships. Like specifically, they hinted at Spider-Man and Doctor Strange having a great relationship, because in the comics they have a great relationship, and it seems pretty evident in interviews from D23 with Tom Holland and Benedict Cumberbatch that they are going to have a pretty great relationship in the movie. Did you see the descriptions of the footage or anything like that? Or
So I saw kind of like a clip of the panel, which it basically kind of was like just them introducing the actors. So yeah, I don't really know a ton about Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like, you're very aware of this, and this is something that like, your viewers should be aware of. I kind of checked out of Marvel after Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Just not impressed, or?
I think the thing is that I am the type of person that like as you know, and I kind of like touched on this before, I'm very into indie cinema. Like, I like indie cinema. I'm not like a franchise type person.
Right.
So, I can appreciate what Marvel's doing, but I also feel like they're kind of losing their footing with story in some aspects.
I can see that. I can understand that, yeah.
That's just sort of the thing, is that I do enjoy visual spectacle, but...
You're not a blockbuster person.
Yeah, I'm not a blockbuster type person, so
that's
like,
okay.
I'm...
Yeah. Some
definitely,
people don't get into that, the smashy.
Yeah, definitely.
Bang,
So
bang.
I would like to see like a little more just kind of story in there.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like Civil War tried to go for that, and it just, like, for me personally, I think the hardest thing is it just, the absurdity keeps growing, and it's like it's founded because it's like superheroes, but like
I think you should definitely consider looking at movies like Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh,
I think you'd be.
No,
I think you'd be genuinely surprised at.
I'm
what
definitely
they did
gonna
with
check out
Spider-Man:
Homecoming, because I'm not saying particularly. Okay, so I actually really love Logan. Like, I think Logan is a fantastic film.
Best movie.
I enjoyed. I mean, I beg to differ.
I mean, Baby Driver and then Logan. Sorry.
But then I also like really did enjoy Civil War. Just in the sense of that, I felt that not Civil War. Sorry, Winter Soldier. Civil War. I guess kind of like the hard part for me was I remember sitting in the theater and just like there's kind of a moment, and I mean I really hope everybody's seen Civil War at this point.
Spoilers.
Well, can I spoil it, or should I just...
Yeah, you can spoil it.
Okay, so when Tony Stark's just like, you killed my mom out of nowhere.
Whoops.
And is like, You killed my mom. Sorry, did we go over time?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So
That's
he's like,
alarm.
you killed my mom, and then it launches into a 30-minute battle. That kind of bothered me.
Yeah, well,
they just kept going.
To defend that, it is an emotional battle, and
I know it was, but it could have happened.
It was a battle built on building up to this moment where Cap had to kind of choose between his two friends, who he would save, and who he'd look out for, and he didn't really look out for Iron Man and his parents, and when he should have told him about that whole ordeal. But he's also got Bucky, everyone's trying to kill him, and I felt it was a very emotional and intimate battle.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. It just, for me at that point, I kind of had my fill of the film, and I was like, okay, I would have enjoyed this 40 minutes beforehand, sort of thing. So I mean, but then again, that's just sort of a me personally thing.
Yeah.
And I think it will be interesting to see, like I said before, this is a franchise that has a lot of backing, and it has a lot of love. So, people will open their pocketbooks.
Yeah.
That is the thing. They will give them money.
And the big thing is that this is sort of like an end of an era. This is sort of the culmination of everything that's happened since Iron Man. So everything from that movie is going to tie into this movie. Well, some characters may die. Some characters may.
Is this the end of Phase 2 or Phase 3?
Phase 3.
Okay.
So we're being told Phase 4 might not even be actually Phase 4. Might be something.
Yeah,
different, which is interesting to hear about.
My biggest thing with Infinity War is I heard the phases announced, when they were announced a couple years ago, and I was still super into Marvel. Would jump up and go see the movie with my best friend and everything. But I think in a sense, I'm curious to see where they'll go after Infinity War.
Yeah. Because
I feel from what I'm hearing from people. I don't think you can, it's reached its apex. I don't know how it can get more complicated than it already is.
Mm-hmm. And I think they said the only way to go from here is to go more,
deeper down the rabbit hole.
Deeper into, character stories. So, not smaller as in, make smaller movies, but to make them a little more focus on the characters and less about the plot.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to see them do that.
I think that's good, because I honestly do appreciate some of the characters. I think exploring Captain America and the Winter Soldier was cool. I think he's an interesting character to explore. I think Tony Stark's a very interesting character to explore. I mean, for me personally, if Iron Man 3 had, taken a deeper look at, Tony Stark and not just at, I mean, it did take a deep look, but, a deeper look would be nice.
Yeah, I think Iron Man 3 was probably the peak of that deeper look, and I felt satisfied with all that.
Yeah, I
remember they could always go deeper. And
oh, yeah, no, and I mean, I'm the type of person who, I mean, it's been a joke made, Liz watches Schindler's List to relax. I mean, I like really deep, dark films, so, I mean, that's
cool.
Again,
no, that's you. That's awesome.
That's a me personally thing, but I definitely think the interesting thing, again, with, the franchise is that we have a sort of, there's, our generation that's watching it that kind of, saw it through, high school and all of that sort of come up, but then there's, these little kids that are watching it, and then there's adults that are watching it, and these three sort of, generations, and we're starting to have, more kids who are getting to the age now that, Infinity War is going to come out, and they're going to be, at the age to watch Marvel, but are they going to understand the universe? Because you have to go back and watch 10, 15 films
it'll be interesting,
to understand the emotional arc of these characters.
Yeah, because I think it'll be kind of these movies will be kind of the Westerns of previous generations. So,
I think
my dad was always hey, come check out these awesome Westerns with John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. And I'll be with my kids hey, come check out these cool films with Robert Downey Jr. playing a superhero who wears an iron suit and Captain America.
Yeah, and I'll be hey kids, watch Wes Anderson.
Watch this deep, dark, emotional film.
Hey, want to watch the Royal Tenenbaums?
I actually hope I don't sound like this when I'm a dad, but...
Yeah. I mean...
Anyways, we should probably move on to our last top 5 story. Number 5, Star Wars The Last Jedi was also at D23. we saw a behind-the-scenes look at the movie, and some of the cast came out and talked a little bit more about their roles in the film. We got one big reveal, which I thought was really exciting. Those of you who were disappointed with Finn not coming up against Captain Phasma in the movie, felt that she was a little underused, can rest at ease because we got confirmation from Gwendolyn Christie and John Boyega that Finn and Captain Phasma will have a fight together, and they will be sort of like, protagonist-antagonist relationship. Like, she's pissed at him, and they're going to, try and kill each other, which is great because that was one of the big disappointments about The Force Awakens was Captain Phasma was built up as this big, awesome, threatening female character, and she says maybe 100, not even that many words in the movie, and never fires a gun, never does any cool action scenes, and just kind of underused as a character. And to see her sort of get this beefed up role and this relationship with Finn because he worked under her is interesting. But let's also get into the footage as well. They just showed a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. We saw new looks at some of the characters like Rey and Leia and Finn. I have it pulled up right here because that's why you're hearing clicking. Giant red green screens, or maybe that's not a green screen.
Did they shoot this at Pinewood?
They did shoot at Pinewood. They also shot it on location in some other areas. Nice. This is shot Skelly Michael Island, the stuff with Luke and Rey on the island and stuff, which is really cool because it just goes to show how serious they're taking the franchise. They're going to real locations. They're creating real practical effects that actors can act off of, which I find myself to be inspired by a lot of these Spielbergian type films, and to see that type of care and devotion put into these films where you go into real locations, you're seeing real aliens, and it makes the whole thing feel more real and immersive. That's why Star Wars is so great, I think, and why people want to see more, because this is the only franchise that is willing to go the extra mile to show you, hey, we have the story, we have the quality, and you can go in here and feel like you're actually immersed in the world and come out like, wait, that was a movie, or was that actually real?
I feel like it just should be stated right now that Vinny is currently wearing Star Wars sunglasses.
I am wearing Star Wars sunglasses.
So, yeah, he really likes Star Wars. But I think
they know. They all know.
No, really?
Yeah.
It's not all over your YouTube channel.
It's not all over my YouTube channel. They all know that I love Star Wars.
But, anyways, so I personally, I'm excited for this, in a sense that I, again, normally, if this was just a film coming out, I would not normally be, super excited for it, but, oh my god, it's so cute.
I know. We're looking at one of the new creatures, which is a cross between a penguin and an otter.
With, these really...
These really big eyes.
It's
so really the most adorable thing ever.
Oh, okay.
It's like,
can we get it off the screen so I just stop?
Like,
okay, get that off the screen too, because that's gonna make me cry.
It's like, get out of here, Wookiees or Ewoks. We got
or what's his name? Kissing Carrie Fisher on the cheek.
Oh, Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac kissing Carrie. Oh, my heart broke a little bit when I saw
I'm
that.
Sorry.
No, but so in a sense of that, Star Wars has, for our generation and for my parents' generation, it has a lot of nostalgia. Mm-hmm. So seeing this come back is really interesting. It's really weird because it's my childhood.
Definitely.
And I don't know. I think it's kind of funny because the first installment of the new trilogy came out the year I was born.
Really?
Yeah. I'm very young. But anyways, so Phantom Menace came out when I was born, and then I saw the original. I didn't see Star Wars in order.
Gotcha.
I saw it completely out of order. I think I watched it like 5, 1, 6, 4, 3, 2.
7.
Yeah, 7. And then Rogue One.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, I mean, to me, seeing, like, Luke on screen again, like, that's really cool. And seeing, like, this whole new generation of characters of, like, something that I grew up with and really loved and, like,
yeah,
you know, there's a nostalgia for that. And I think it's interesting to see this kind of, like, new world come out of it, of kind of, like, I remember wondering, like, asking my dad, because my dad had read the books of, like, hey, Dad, like, what happens after Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, seeing now that they've actually created, like, what happens after Star Wars, so.
Yeah, it is, and it's also kind of, it's hard to really put into words because, you know, for a while there wasn't going to be a Star Wars 7 or an 8, and then the day it was announced, it was like, hold on, what? What's happening?
Yeah.
And so there are times when I'm still like, I just take a step back and it's like, wait a minute, this is Star Wars 8. Like,
yeah.
we never, ever, ever imagined we would actually get this far.
I think it's, like, the weird thing for me is, like, I remember talking to people about, like, hearing from certain people, like, hey, they're gonna make more Star Wars. And, like, those are, like, people I knew in, like, middle school and elementary school.
Yeah,
that,
I got
like,
the same
I
talk.
have not spoken to the people I spoke about Star Wars coming out with in a while, and like it's kind of weird because it's like you sort of like see like this is, it's kind of like the odd thing about franchises is like in that regard, like I mean, it's sort of this weird thing that like people shift in your life and then you have this franchise that's been with you as long as your family's been with you, like,
right.
You know, so I think that's kind of funny just to sort of see that, like, you know, it's this kind of world that we all have bonded over.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's like a cardinal sin to, you know, not have seen Star Wars at this school.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, new Avengers majors. I don't know if cardinal sin's an actual. Like, I feel like no, there's cardinal for. I don't know. I'm sorry to my new Avengers roommate.
Feel free to correct us in the comments.
But
yeah, no, definitely, and like you said, to see Luke Skywalker back, and we have an image of him pulled up right now. It's like we never thought we'd see these characters up on screen again. We never, you know, it was always like, oh, it'll probably be a reboot or something, and you know, seeing like Han Solo and Leia and Luke Skywalker back on screen again, being the age they are, and seeing what's happened between now and that last movie is fascinating, and to know that they're kind of taking a more deep and intimate and kind of unexpected direction with the franchise is cool. Like, this movie seems like it's going to be, you know, still fun and exciting like the first movie, or Force Awakens, but it still has this sort of sense of, like, there's some dark stuff that's going to go down in this movie. And that gets me concerned. I think...
You don't like dark stuff, Vinny?
I know, I mean, gets me concerned for the characters. I love it. I'm just like, some people might die, some people might not die.
I mean...
Some people are going to be gone from the franchise indefinitely, regardless of what we say. I think that goes without saying.
People are already gone from the franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, okay, first of all, just general thing. If you haven't seen Star Wars 7 yet, okay, so spoilers. But, like, they definitely kind of, I think it's interesting that in the last film they established that, like, these characters can die. Yeah. And something I was discussing when I was watching the behind the scenes, because I was watching it with someone after a meeting for a project, but we were discussing the fact that, like, honestly, I think a lot of people are aware that Carrie Fisher is probably going to die.
Probably.
Just because, well, we understand that, like, they've obviously CGI rendered characters before for, like, Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think that they're going to attempt to do that for this, to continue her as a character.
I don't think so either. And I honestly would not have been opposed to that if they did.
Yeah.
I think they proved with Tarkin in Rogue One that that's a feasible option that definitely pays off.
Well, even
I
with
thought it was
Carrie
fine.
Fisher in Rogue One.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I
mean,
don't understand what the big deal is about not putting her CGI, at least for this movie. Like, don't maybe not make her, you know, make her carry on for the next 5 or 6 Star Wars movies, but for at least for Episode 9, if you want to end her arc.
But I think it comes back to the practical effects thing, because in a sense, like, Rogue One went a lot more like VFX way, whereas like Star Wars, like, this is something like J.J. Abrams was saying, like, this is a return to practical effects, this is a return to like a grounded cinema. Very loose quoting there, but
grounded cinema.
And in a sense, I think they want to stick to the practical effects. So plus, I mean, we already have like the emotional impact of, like, there are a lot of people who had a very strong emotional impact when she died.
Definitely.
So that just basically, because of the cultural significance of it currently, that would cause so much more of an emotional kind of reaction from the audience. Are you good there, Vinny?
Yeah, no, I'm good. No, I yawned and I was just like,
but yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. I think it definitely is a touchy thing. Me personally, I don't have a problem with it if they announce tomorrow, like, hey, we're going to CGI Leia in portions of Episode 9 to end her arc, and I'm like, great, do it, absolutely. But I feel like this is going to be her last movie, regardless, in the Star Wars franchise, and they're definitely going to, either she's going to die in this one, or they will explain why she's not in the next movie somehow, because they said they didn't change a lot of what she did in this, but I feel like they probably did something to change her outcome in this movie, because the point of the next one was supposed to be she would have a much bigger role in Episode 9, but now that she is gone, that role will probably go to Luke, or heck, maybe Han Solo's still alive. Man can dream, right?
Okay.
So anyways, we should wrap this up. But the behind the scenes thing was really moving and really, really cool to see, and great to see Carrie Fisher doing her thing on set, and this is a shame it'll be her last one. But I think Rian Johnson, just to touch on him real quick, he's really tried to make this movie different and unexpected, but also very fun, and I'm a huge fan of what he's doing so far. Like, I've loved everything I've seen of his take on The Last Jedi. So I hope that it's everything we're hoping it is, and I hope that we are also undoubtedly surprised by this movie. I think it'll be a standout, and heck, maybe even one of the best Star Wars films ever. So we'll see. All right, so that was our top 5 ranked on the list. That was number 1, WreckIt Ralph 2 at D23, Pixar at D23, Wrinkle in Time at D23, Avengers Infinity War at D23, and Star Wars The Last Jedi at D23. And now we're on to our special topic of the week, where Elizabeth is here to talk about something that she discussed with me a couple weeks ago that I thought, hey, this is interesting, we should put this on the podcast. Something which she calls the dangers of film. That's right?
Yeah, the dangers of cinema. So I wrote 4 pages of an essay for a class on this. But basically something I kind of discovered when I was looking at sort of the indie film circuit is that there was a lot of concern at the Cannes Film Festival this year about terrorism. And so as I was kind of like looking into that, I was kind of curious just in a sense of like, first of all, like, why would this be a concern for cinema? And so while there are like a lot of like obviously people of high status going to these festivals, which is, you know, large place, high status, but in the same sense, I began thinking about it in the sense of like, this is like, cinema is a form of free speech. It is one of the kind of like most open places for people to like express their ideas. So I think that's really interesting. The one particular quote that I had found about this that I'll kind of like read off here is from an article from IndieWire from David Ehrlich. I'm sorry, sir, if I've mispronounced your name. But he says, but at Cannes, it didn't take long for me to see the value of this behavior, to appreciate the idea of the critics from all over the world were responding to a shared experience in the only language we all understood. The festival may be the alpha and omega of auteur-driven filmmaking, but it is also a visceral reminder that cinema is one of the last true democracies we have left. And casting your vote today is the only way in ensuring that you'll have one tomorrow. The Pam de I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, of ensuring that you'll get, is the most coveted award in film for a reason. Every part of Cannes contributes to the feelings that movies are worth fighting over and they're worth fighting for. Even the army of soldiers patrolling this year's festival in response to savage terrorist attack in Nice last summer inadvertently added to the feeling that cinema is a matter of life and death, unquote. So basically, just sort of this idea that, like, we have this sort of, like, world of free speech, and, like, how is that sort of, like, dangerous to people? Because, like, the minute you begin understanding humanity as it is, and you begin to see the world through different eyes, and you get to kind of, like, build this community, I mean, to some people, that's dangerous. Like, and so I think that's interesting, and even, like, one thing I'll say, about sort of cinema is that even, so, I don't know if this is kind of, I mean, it's probably really well known on your podcast. Vince and I go to a Catholic film school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so in the sense of that, it is a Catholic film school, but we have many different voices that explore many different aspects, and, like, you know, there's been debates over projects at these schools, but, you know, people are able to kind of, like, see all these different aspects of the world, and when we're all kind of, like, Catholic, we all have very different views, and understanding that, and understanding people's backgrounds. For example, Moonlight, I mean, I will never know what it is like to be a young black gay man in Miami, but I have seen that story. And so that's just something to me that I found interesting, sort of like seeing the world through someone else's eyes and whether or not that's dangerous. And I, you know, clearly that was something they were concerned that terrorists would take action against at Cannes, you know,
right,
is this sort of idea of relating and not being able to kind of hide that. But
yeah. No, this is a great thing to bring up into, I mean, it's just something that you sort of took notice of and just started to write about, or was this something, like, did you see an article that talked specifically about this and you wanted to write your own thoughts on this? Or
so that quote that I just read off is the one quote that actually talks about that specifically. It was an overall 4-page article about his experience at Cannes from IndieWire. It's called Cannes 2017, How My First Trip to the Festival Convinced Me That Movies Matter More Than Ever.
So it was so that article launched you into writing this 4-page
spiel.
4-page spiel, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I was required to write the paper. So just sort of in the context of the paper, we have a class called Media Survey here, and we have to discuss basically where in the media we would like to work and what our job would like to be. So my paper was on cinematography and independent cinema. So the first 4 pages were discussing what the status of the independent cinema world is right now. So that was something I discussed because clearly people are saying this is like something that is part of independent cinema, is that we have a voice that is not restricted by studios, it is restricted by budgets.
Yeah.
And
good
so
point. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. So
that's
definitely
a good way to define studio and indie filmmaking.
Yeah, exactly. I
think both have their pros and cons. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not bashing either one. They're both.
No,
both
either.
great.
I mean, definitely. I'm personally my favorite films are indie films. Like, I mean, I think you've had Miley on the podcast before.
Oh yeah, no,
yeah,
I love.
Yeah.
I love indie films as well. I appreciate wanting to get away from the studios and just make your movie and then see who will want to distribute it. And that's something I'm looking into as well for my future. But you know, studio films are what sort of gets you to a point where you can be at a studio level and say, hey, I want to make this. And they're like, okay, you make it.
Chris Nolan.
Chris Nolan or Scorsese or I mean, I think Edgar Wright's on his way to do that as well with Baby Driver.
I mean, definitely. I mean, Baby Driver's kind of like his. I mean,
it's kind of his breakout. I mean,
not even his breakout. I mean, I don't know if this is the best way to say it, but kind of his middle finger to Marvel after Ant-Man.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean...
That's a good point.
Because, like, that sort of the thing was, like, he'd spent all this time making, like, a heist film, and then he was like, I want to make a heist film, which was a beautiful heist film.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I kind of freaked out my roommate with how much I loved it. Yeah, she was like, okay, you really like that movie. But anyways, back to sort of like the dangers of cinema sort of thing. Just kind of seeing the world through a different person's perspective and being able to understand and empathize with people is dangerous. And
like Moonlight.
Yeah, I mean...
As an example.
Yeah, as an example. Moonlight or... I don't know how many people are familiar with Meadowland. It was directed by Reed Morano. I love Reed Morano. She is an inspiration to me. I know I said that before. She's inspired me to become a cinematographer. So shout out to her. You're amazing. But anyways, so she directed this film, and it's about a mother's reaction after her son is kidnapped. And so, you know, this is an aspect of the world that most people would, like, never see. And, like, that's kind of, like, something that I think people are okay with seeing. But, like, you know, there are people who have never known what it's like, you know, to live in a darkness or to live in light. And, you know, this understanding of other humans and how they see the world and their background just kind of like begins to sort of break these barriers and bring about sort of like a unity, and we can voice our opinions and we can disagree with opinions, and you know, I mean, if you look at cons, you can boo Marie Antoinette, like, you know, and then give Sofia Coppola an award a couple of years later, like, you know, this is a panel for people to be genuinely themselves and to genuinely share what they've experienced. And so
so maybe to generalize it for our viewers, would you say that the danger specifically is the fact that filmmakers have the platform to give a voice to a specific perspective, and is that in itself the danger?
I would say it's... I'm not saying it's, like, I'm saying dangerous in the sense of that, the dangers of understanding another human being. And I know that sounds sort of odd, but I think, and I'm not saying this is dangerous for, like, civilians. I'm saying this is dangerous in the sense of that for people, like, for example, terrorists, who do not want you to, like, be living certain lifestyles or understand why someone will live a certain lifestyle. For example, I personally grew up in a very conservative Catholic area. To them, people I know, it would be dangerous for their children to understand to understand Moonlight, to understand that perspective. Right. You know, the same thing with, like, you know, other groups of people. That's more of where I'm saying the danger is.
Right. That makes sense. And I think it's important to emphasize that, like, there's nothing wrong with sympathizing with the perspective, but I mean, everybody has a right to support and agree with what they can and cannot agree. For example, because we've been talking about it so much, Moonlight, you know, despite what you can't deny that film is cinematically excellent on almost every level, whether you agree with the message or not.
But the thing I would have to say about Moonlight is, this comes back to the message thing. Moonlight doesn't have a message. Right. It does not have a message. Like, as someone who has seen the film and owns the film and really enjoys the film, I don't see it as the type of film that has a message. I see it more as something I recently heard it described as is it shows you kind of like how you're sort of a different person in every element, like in every sort of chapter of your life. So, like, you're a different person as a child, you're a different person as a teenager, you're a different person as an adult. And so that's something that kind of, like, we can all relate to, maybe not to the degree that Chiron relates to it in the film. Right. But the thing is that's what I'm saying, is that it gives you, it's not telling you have to agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not telling you have to disagree with it. And that's something that I think is great, is that we have this platform of democracy that, you know, Barry Jenkins can release this film and somebody else could release another film that's talking about something completely different, that completely disagrees.
Like conflicts. You know? No, that's absolutely
and
true.
You can put your ideas and you can, you know, fight and you can argue and you can empathize and sympathize and understand and see the world differently.
Right.
And so that's something that I find really interesting.
No, it is, and it's something that I didn't ever really consider until you brought it up, because I've tried to be a very open-minded filmmaker and a very open-minded person when it comes to watching movies. But if there's something I don't agree with or something I don't like, I'll call out and just be like, hey, I don't like that. Not saying you don't have to like that. I just don't like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's sort of, you bring up sort of sheltered conservative families, which we're not bashing, by the way, but it's kind of not the greatest way to raise children. Like, I remember going to a very, hanging out with this very conservative family, and sometimes, you know, even talking about specific things, like, you know, I grew up a Catholic, but I was never raised in a very sheltered environment. My parents were always about me experiencing everything as it is, as the world is, and then learning for myself to apply my faith where needed.
Absolutely.
And as I went into this sheltered young youth community, I found that they looked down on a lot of things that I liked, that I like to talk about. So it was hard. I never felt like neglected. I felt like, well, wait, why can't we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or things that, I'll mention one specific example. It was this youth class, and there was a priest showing us music and how music is can be a very demonic thing, and that certain musicians purposely tried to be demonic, like the Eagles or the Beatles. And these yeah, no, exactly. And these are bands that, like, at the time my dad was showing me, that I grew up with, that I loved, and I'm like, that is just, like, there's, like, if you listen closely, you can hear these very satanic, cryptic messages within the song, and then it's like, I guess, but that's a really far stretch. Like, really, really far stretch. Like, if you play them backwards, and I don't know, I had to sort of just be like, hey, I don't think I want to go back here anymore. It's just that type of attitude that I didn't like. I was like, this is not how one should experience the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, something I will say is that, like, at least for my family was, like, very upfront and honest with me about stuff. Like, if I asked questions, they would answer them, and they were honest about it, and they were honest about, like, what the church's teachings were, and they were very clear about that. Now, I went to a conservative Catholic homeschool group, so there were people I knew who were, like, far more sheltered than I.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, my parents definitely were, like, against me watching certain films. And,
as were mine.
But they definitely were, like, allowed me to kind of, like, see the world for what it was. And so I think that that's something just kind of, like, that cinema even allows you to do, is kind of encounter the world for what it is. Like, and, you know, sometimes the world is, like, a dark and horrible place, and sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's beautiful, and sometimes there's beauty in darkness. And so I think it's kind of, like, really interesting to see everybody's perspectives, because even if you look at, like, so we currently have 5 senior projects at our school right now. If you look at the way that, you know, Miley sees the world, and Gabe sees the world, and, you know, Susie sees the world, and Preston sees the world, and, you know, you see the world, Claire sees the world, Andrew sees the world, like, everybody sees the world differently.
Right.
And you can tell that through their films.
Right,
and
that's a good point.
That is really cool, especially because, like, these particular 5 films that we have are so diverse in what stories they're telling and in what worldviews they're telling.
Right, and I think they're more diverse than anything that JP Catholic has done in the past.
Yeah.
I think, just to touch on the senior projects real quick, what they've done for the longest time is tackle stories that are emotionally devastating. And while, yes, that's great, and I understand, like, that's a perspective of the world, I get that. But at the same time, it's like, I saw that and I was like, okay, there's more to the world than emotional devastation, and there's more that you can show people than just like these sad stories. And that's sort of what I tried to apply to Windfall. That's why I try to apply to every film. I still like deep and, more dark content. I still have ideas for that. But I saw you can show people something a little more upbeat. And that's the kind of tone I apply to all my films, is that, yes, there's these dark, emotional, devastating stories that can be told, but there is a brighter side to the world that definitely needs to be voiced. And I think, like you said, that's the great freedom, also the great danger of film, is that we have the power to voice these different perspectives, and people can misconstrue that as being bad or good. And I think I encourage you all that were listening to open your mind a little bit and be open to the possibility of understanding someone's perspective, not necessarily agreeing, because sometimes that's not possible, and no one's asking you to, well, at least I'm not asking you to change your beliefs just because something needs to be sympathized with. But definitely sympathizing with something is important, and whether that makes you change your opinion or thoughts on something, you shouldn't be afraid of that. But again, if you don't, that's not a problem either. So I guess that's my thoughts. Do you want to maybe do some closing remarks on this topic?
Well, I guess my closing remarks are, like, as an audience, when a filmmaker bears their soul to you, whether or not you're aware of how much it is, like, take a moment and appreciate that, like, and take a moment to
they're sharing a part of you.
Empathize and see.
Point.
I mean, that's something that I think, obviously as artists, like, we're very aware of, is that everything we make shares a part of us, whether or not you realize to what degree it does. So, definitely take that, and, as filmmakers, like, don't be terrified to, like, share your perspective. Like, there is someone else in the world out there who understands. And I think that's kind of like when you first start making art, that's kind of like the terrifying thing, is like, oh, like, I don't want someone to see how I see the world. Like, maybe someone will think that's, like, strange or whatever. But, if you, like, I grew up watching films, and something else I said in my essay is, like, I enjoyed films as a kid that, like, you watch the film and you're like, I've been there too.
Yeah.
Like, I've been there too. I've seen that too. And so I think that that's something, like, that artists should be ready to do, is, like, be that voice that says, it's okay, I've been there too. And, like, it's all right. And so I think that's kind of, like, again, obviously I write a lot of, like, very emotionally devastating stuff right now. Currently writing a dark comedy. Yay.
It's a comedy.
It's debatable. But yeah, so I think that definitely sort of my closing remarks is just kind of, like, be open to cinema and, embrace it. Embrace this freedom that we currently have. And, obviously, like, the world is shifting right now. So, yeah, take a moment, embrace it, enjoy it, open your eyes to a different worldview, and enjoy it.
And that was our topic of the week with Elizabeth Vrklan, talking about the dangers of film. Well, we talked about quite a lot.
Yeah.
Some pretty deep stuff. We've gotten pretty deep on the show. I don't think we've gotten that deep before, so.
Well, you brought me on this podcast.
I did, yeah.
I walk by a vending machine and I'm like, hey, let's talk about souls.
Be strong for that deep stuff. Yep. Great. Alrighty, guys. Well, that's our show today. I don't have a shout-out. as I normally do.
Well,
I guess I'm going to shout out Elizabeth Vrklan's YouTube channel and her short films.
There's, I guess, 80/20 films. 80/20 films you can check out.
Check that out.
I have like one video on there. It's called Youth. Enjoy that. It's nice and dark.
She'll make more. She'll
yeah.
put more
Also,
out there.
if you don't have a shout out, shout out to the senior projects.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to all those people.
You know what? Because I think I'm going to try to get Miley on here next week. Let's just shout out Chirp, Buzz, and Other Sensations. I know we talked about it last week with Gabe, but you know what the heck, you know?
Yeah. Shout out to Chirp. Shout out to Windfall.
Thank you.
Within
Arc, La Oportunidad.
Shout out to my roommate Susie who directed that.
Yeah. Like I said before, we're gonna try to get all the directing people. I almost said directing too. We're gonna get all of the senior project directors in here to talk about the films they made. We already got Gabe, the DP of Chirp. We're going to try to get Miley in here, Preston, Susie, Andrew, and then maybe we'll try and see if we can get other people who are involved with those projects.
There's you and Claire, too.
And Claire, definitely. Claire and JJ, who produced Arc. We're going to try to get him out as well. So,
yeah, definitely.
All that and more.
I mean, shout out to all those people, and it was great working on your projects for those I did.
Yeah. And thank you, Elizabeth, for being on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully we can have you back in the near future.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Where can the people find you online?
Where can they find me online? Elizabeth Vrklan on Instagram. My last name is spelled Vrklan. I'm Slavic.
Nice.
Very Eastern European in case nobody notices when they meet me. But yeah, so that has my a lot of photos on it. It has a link to my portfolio. So you can check that out and see. I don't really have a Facebook, and I don't know if people dare want to go near my Twitter.
Your Twitter's pretty great.
Okay. I guess Elizabeth Vrklan on Twitter. I just kind of like talk about filmmaking on Twitter, and
Is that all though?
What else have I'm very salty on Twitter, so just like cautionary warning.
Cautionary warning. Follow her at your own risk.
I'm sorry in advance. If you don't like sarcasm and saltiness, maybe you shouldn't have listened to this podcast. But
yeah. Sucks to be you, I guess. You being the audience.
Yeah.
And then you guys can obviously follow me. All my social media links will be in the description below. Yeah, hopefully next week we'll have Miley Durbin on to talk about Chirp. If not, we'll have one of the other directors of the senior projects. This has been a great episode. Episode 23, D23. Just made that connection. I think I'll just rename the episode D23. All right. Well, thank you all for watching this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We can check out my short films, trailer reactions, and more episodes of the Vince Salerno Podcast. We'll see you next week. God bless and peace out.